All right, guys. So when I first got into type, I had always heard like, oh, academics hate type. And, I was like, okay, I guess because they have their own thing going on, I kind of get it, right? And then, I decided I was going to go to school and regularly bring up type to my professors. And some professors are like, oh, that's interesting. Uh, I've had professors say, oh, like I'm an academic and it's kind of not something I'm willing to like look at because it's against what I do, the typical dogma. And then I've had some say that and I've been able to explain it and they were like, oh, okay, they didn't want, they're protecting their reputation in academia. That's basically what's going on. And, but it gets even better. So last summer, I took a summer course, research methods course, and I basically we do our introductions, and I wrote to the teacher like, "Oh yeah, I have a YouTube channel, and I talk type, and on talking about who I am and what I do." And then I heard his lecture videos where he's like basically bashing the MBTI and things like that, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I kind of get it." And then I ended up with an A minus in his class, which was my first A minus in college since I was 19. You know, um, Once I went back to college, I got straight A's. I was like, oh, I don't think this teacher likes how I see psychology, right? And then, you know, I went to school that fall and I had a class where the professor had basically asked this other professor that I had in the summer to come give our class a presentation on a different personality system for careers. And it's cool, whatever, that's what they do. Then this teacher came in and he's like, this isn't an MBTI system. It's not, no one's going to be just an ISTJ or something like that. And I was just sitting there cracking up because this is who this guy is. He really is like that academic that really does hate type. And it is hilarious because now I tell all the other students, I'm like, oh, you're this type, or I have them take the test, or whatever. I give them a little profiling session, whatever it is. And then they're like, oh, that's so cool. How does it know so much about me and things like that? And I'm like, yeah, but there's so many teachers who don't like it. And then I tell them, oh, yeah, and especially this one teacher, he doesn't like it. And he'll, if you ever have him and he comes up, or he comes into one of your classes, or you ever have him as a professor, you're going to see like he bashes the system. And then a couple days later or a couple weeks later, because this guy does do a lot of like presentations for other classes, because he's a organizational psychologist, right? And then a couple of days later, they're like, "You were so right. He really does come and do that. He talks about it, and like they don't even have people in their class who know what type is." But you see these types of students too, like where like because their teachers say don't look into it, they don't. Like I've asked a few students, they're like, "Oh, have you ever taken it?" And they're like, "No, we're in psychology," and I'm like, "So don't you think you should study psychology?"